What's up, everybody? This is Caleb coming to you from Stick Sniper Archery in Tucson, Arizona. Just wanted to give you guys the long-awaited review on these new Ultraview 1K arrow systems that we just got in. We do have some in stock we can ship if you're interested. The reason why we're doing this review is because these arrows are expensive, and we wanted to look at them pretty in depth and determine if they're worth you spending the money or if you could get similar performance from something else. I want to go through some pretty in-depth points that we found on these things and kind of lead you to the conclusion that I found for personally on what we've seen. I know you guys have all seen the videos. You can see all the content that Ultraview's put out. Their promotional video was incredible. Like, their launch video was very, very good. And if it doesn't get you hyped up, I don't know what will. But so I don't want to talk about the specs because you guys can all look that up. The main bottom line is that it's a new arrow system. It's a new diameter, so it's 4.5 millimeter arrow diameter, which there's nothing out right now. The goal that Ultraview had was to bridge the gap between a 4 millimeter and a 5 millimeter arrow, and take both the positives from both sides and combine it into one arrow. So a couple quick notes is that this insert system is new for this arrow. It's a stainless steel and an aluminum insert system built specifically for this arrow. There's match grade points that come with little O-rings so they seat nicely in there. Everything's very flush. There's a Nock bushing on the back of this arrow that's designed to fit any 4 millimeter Nock. So if you don't want to use a Victory Nock, you can use any other 4 millimeter Nock that can fit inside this, so that kind of allows you a little leeway on that kind of stuff. These vanes are injection molded, which means that they have more consistent cut versus the ones that are stamped out of all the sheets. They are a 2-degree left offset. And I know a lot of people are talking about left helical, right helical nowadays, and how your string clocks depending on, you know, the twist of the string and stuff. So these are a 2-degree left offset on these arrows. So I've been personally shooting them for ever since they first came out. I've been shooting them pretty extensively, putting them through the ringer. I am personally very hard on equipment. I break stuff all the time, and that's kind of my litmus test on how things are going to perform out in the hunting scenario, out in a competition scenario. So I like testing things, and if something passes all my personal tests and it's not breaking and performs like it needs to, then it's going to be something that I would consider using. So I have my checklist right here. I'm going to run you guys through some of the stuff that I found, and then I'll tell you what I thought at the very end. But the first thing I want to talk to you is parts availability. So right now, Ultraview launched the arrow systems and got them out to the market, I think right before hunting season, to make sure that people have the potential to use it. But right now they're very limited on parts, and that's one of the things I dinged them on, is that you're not able to get nocks, inserts, field points, fletching kits, all that stuff right up front. Now, I was looking at their website and it says the nocks are coming soon, field points are coming soon, but the fletching kits have a launch. So right now you can buy a full fletch kit, and it comes with enough for, I believe, 7 arrows, wraps and fletches in one kit. You can't buy them individually. So when we were talking to Ultraview about this, their reasoning is that everything should be precision. Everything should be in batches and the same. Like if you're reloading ammunition, you do batches on, you know, the date and time that you did these, because everything is going to be different depending on your jig and your dies and all that stuff. But the same thing goes with these arrows, that your Bits and Burger or your Arizona Easy Fletch might be a little bit different every time you fletch arrows. So if you're gonna refletch, you should fletch all of them at the same time, so all 6 of them. So that's why the kit comes in 7, with enough for 7 arrows that you can do all at once. Now, that's to maintain precision and the exact same consistency throughout your arrows. And that's kind of the theme you're gonna notice with these arrows, is that everything is supposed to be identical and the same, so you can have repeatable accuracy with these arrows. So that being said, I know parts are going to come to the market later on, but the reason why I'm having an issue personally with the parts is because my first group, and I'm getting ahead of myself, my very first group with these arrows, I went to the range and I thought to myself, I just spent this $243 or so out the door after taxes for these arrows. I'm not going to group because I don't want to damage them. I went back to 80 yards in the very first group that I shot with these arrows. I got a Robin Hood. So I damaged the Nock and the Nock bushing, contacted Ultraview, and they don't have anything for me right now, so I gotta wait. I know I can get Victory Nocks right now, but Ultraview didn't have anything, so that's why I'm dinging them on that. Kind of tying on that, when I had the Robin Hood, the Nock bushing. I went to remove the Nock bushing, and the Nock bushing is either glued in or pressed so tight that it won't come out. So I've done multiple things. I've tried to put a wood screw in just a little bit to get some friction and bite and pull it out with pliers. It won't do it. I've soaked it in acetone. It won't come out. So that Nock bushing, as far as I know, unless there's another technique, is not able to be removed. Now, it protected that arrow. It took a little chunk out of the Nock bushing when I hit it, but it's still a little chunk out and I wanted to replace it, but it did protect the arrow, so that's a really good thing for it. At the same time, I'm not able to get another Nock bushing. And if there's other ways, I look forward to your guys' comments, and let us know in the comments below if there's other ways to get these press-fitted bushings out. We look forward to that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the insert system. I'm sure you guys can see that when you look at all the pictures online. But you can see right here, there's, let me get my tape measure, maybe a 1/4 inch of insert that goes, yeah, it's about a 1/4 inch or so of insert that's exposed beneath the or after it sticks out from the other end. And then when you stick the insert inside the arrow shaft, I'll put my finger right there, that's about a 1/2 inch. So the surface that this insert is connecting to the arrow is only a 1/2 inch. Now I understand that there's the outside core, like almost like a attached collar, but essentially you only have this much of the insert going inside the arrow. The two things that I was thinking about with that is that you have kind of a minimal surface to put glue or hot melt or anything like that on this, because you have to put it on the outside, and then as you put in the arrow, you have to shove that glue inside of it. So I didn't use hot melt. I use hot melt for broadheads, but not for field point shooting. I used glue, insert glue, and I glued the heck out of the whole exterior. I put more glue than I normally would. Usually I'll put a bead and then rotate it around so it seats evenly and push it in. This one, I soaked the entire thing with glue and I shoved it in and had to wipe off the excess because I wasn't sure how this was going to hold up over time. The reason why this is important is because this is a standard Victory RIP TKO insert, and you can see the difference, the length difference right there, how much more glue surface you get to stick it in the arrow, and the arrows both go inside these inserts about a 1/2 inch. So there's a lot more glue surface on this aluminum one. This is a totally aluminum one. This is aluminum stainless steel combination, but you get a lot more glue on this one. These ones are more beefy and more durable from what I've seen. These ones typically bend, so as a pro shop, we try to stay away from putting these inserts on Victory arrows, because if you have a hard hit or you miss and hit the ground, this thing's gonna bend and you have to pull it out or the arrow's done. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself today, but today I was shooting out at about 100 yards, and it was my first shot, and I dialed my sight in, shot, and the arrow hit the dirt below the target, skipped and hit in the target, and then I looked at my sight tape and I accidentally dialed it in 10 yards short, so I shot 89 instead of 99. So when I went to go get my arrow, the first thing I was looking at is this insert, and surprisingly it was completely straight. And normally if I would have shot a Victory arrow with this insert is bent now, done. But this one was so beefy and durable that it was still good and had no issues at all. So that is a plus. I was a little hesitant on the glue surface on this thing, but after that one this morning, shooting it and it hit the ground and skipped in, this should have been bent with a typical Victory insert, but it wasn't. I think that's because it's so heavy duty, and it's a lot heavier. It's a 75 grain, and usually the Victory ones are 50 grains. On this particular arrow, this is a 1K arrow. This is the first one that I Robin Hood. You can see the Nock split right here, and there's a gouge out of the Nock bushing. I damaged one of the fletchings too on this one, shooting when I shot another arrow right next to it. So I pulled everything off because I'm tinkering at everything, and I know they're expensive, but I got to understand how they work. And one thing that I did notice on these ones is that there's that coating that Victory talks about. I don't remember the name of it, but it's a super smooth coating. You can feel it. It almost feels like wax on a car. It allows better penetration through targets, and it lets you pull it out of the target without getting stuck. And I know you guys have seen it where arrows go in over and over, and they start to get the target stuck on them, and chunks of the target come out on it. So I think this coating is going to combat that. But when I pulled off the wrap, the coating stops right here where the wrap starts. So essentially this portion of the arrow is not coated. So I don't know if they coated them after the fact. I'm not sure. I know these are very first batch, and a lot of times things get changed afterwards, but that's something that I looked at. I was like, well, the coating doesn't extend all the way through the arrow. I know it doesn't need it because of the wrap, and maybe the wrap adheres better on the end of the arrow without the coating, but I'm not sure. But that's just something I did notice. On the wraps, so if you look at one of these arrows right now, you'll see that it's called a die cut wrap, where there's like a line where it's kind of looks like it comes down to a point right there, top and bottom in there. If you get the Refletch kits off of Victory's website, they don't have them die cut, and I'm not sure, I haven't talked to anybody yet as to the reasoning behind that. I don't know why they changed it, or if they were supposed to change or not, but that is a difference right there, and it'll only change a couple grain weight, but that will change everything. You know, if we're talking details and precision and refletching a dozen or 6 arrows when only one needs to be refletched, then we're talking precision and little points. If the wraps that we're buying to refletch our whole kit are different, then that would require a little bit of change on your site. So just another point, because we're talking precision and we're being very nitpicky about all these things because these arrows are super expensive. The last kind of con that I came up with, or the negative aspect on these things, which is kind of a more personal thing, is that buying these arrows, when I went to go ring up the arrows, you know, $240 some out the door, I felt a little weird, because you're like, you could get, you know, other arrows for a cheaper price, so you instantly feel really like you want to protect these arrows. So I don't personally want to group these arrows whatsoever. I don't want to go to a range and group them, because for risk of robin hooding them or knocking a vane off. So that's why at 40 yards and out is when I would group these. Anything closer than the 40, I'm not going to group them. So I usually tell customers here at the shop, once you get your bow zeroed in, don't ever group anymore, because you're going to risk damaging arrows, but it brings that to a whole nother level when you're spending more money on arrows like this. So it's just something to take into consideration. So I understand I'm being super nitpicky on a lot of these things, and the reason being is because I keep saying that they're expensive, and I'm going to look at all little aspects of, is this arrow worth your money, and I'm going to be real nitpicky on all the different things. So I mean, I know I found out some of these things, but I would say the bottom line is that if you're looking from a straight performance standpoint, these arrows produce results. And I know I got a little ahead of myself talking to you about that 80-yard Robin Hood. The first day I got them, I rang them up at the cash register and felt a little weird ringing up that much money for 6 arrows after I cut them. And then even when you're cutting them, you're being really careful, because they're just something that you don't want to mess up. You don't want to risk cutting them too short. So I got them all set up. They weighed super close to my hunting arrow, so I was able to shoot the same sight tape and the same yardages. And I went and shot 3 arrows at 3 different 20-yard targets, or 3 different 20-yard aiming points, and they hit really close. I went straight back to 80 yards. Straight back to 80 yards. I shot a group of 6 at 80. And I heard on the 3rd arrow, I heard a smack. And then when I went up to get my arrows, that's when I found this one right here with the Nock busted. And so I'd consider myself a pretty decent shooter. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm a pretty good shooter. I've never had a Robin Hood at 80 yards before, and that was a first for me. So I was pretty surprised. And as I shot more and more, I got really close, even at 60 yards, having 2 arrows touching at 60 yards. So what I'm trying to get at is that the accuracy is unreal. It is absolutely unreal. I've shot these at multiple distances. I've shot them with fixed heads, untuned, and it is very, very impressive. The left, I think something has to do with these vanes, the steering, how these vanes are cut, and the design of these vanes, and how it's a left helical. So for my personal bow, which is right here, it's a Matthews Lift. These arrows right here weighing about 451 grains total weight, and I'm using the 100 grain field points. This bow, I did a bare shaft test, and this bow clocks the arrows left, meaning if I shoot an arrow without fletches, it automatically spins it left, and it's a pretty aggressive left. If I stand about 4 or 5 feet away from the target and I shoot a bare shaft, it turns almost 180 degrees left. So before this, I was shooting right helical vanes, and I was still shooting really, really well with it, really, really well. This is one of the better bows I've shot in a while, but when I put these arrows on it, the groups tightened up. I mean by over an inch on average on the tightening. So I think it has a lot to do with this new vane system. And if you look at Victory's arrows, they talk about the carbon weave. It's a 1K carbon weave. If you go and you look and you compare what a Victory Rip TKO and the 1K arrows look like, the weave is significantly tighter. There's more squares in this one than a Rip. And these are both made by Victory. And what Ultraview talks about is that you get more stabilization. As soon as the arrow leaves the bow, it is stabilized significantly quicker because the arrow is so much stiffer, and it transfers the energy into going forward rather than stabilizing the arrow. And the reason why that's more important is because we did some speed testing. And I'm gonna put all this information down in the information in the description so you guys can read through it. But I did a speed test, and so my hunting setup was an Easton Axis long range match grade 300 spine. And so it's a 4mm arrow. This is a 4.5mm arrow. And I used the Garmin chrono, which is super accurate. You put in the arrow weight, and the Easton Axis chronoed 299 feet per second coming out of the bow. These ones right here came at 298. So 1 feet per second slower. They're 7 grains heavier. 7 grains heavier because my Easton Axis are 444 grains. Then I set the chrono at 80 yards to catch downrange speed, and I didn't have any inclination as to what was going to happen. I just wanted to see. The Easton Axis at downrange at 80 yards, they started at 299, and at 80 yards they were 264. These ones started at 298, and at 80 yards they were 275, which is very, very interesting to me because a heavier arrow, a thicker arrow, carried 11 feet per second more downrange speed at 80 yards than a lighter, skinnier arrow that theoretically has less drag. So with that, there's a couple things. I think the little bit of a heavier arrow carries its weight and carries its kinetic energy more, but I also think that this left helical and this fletch right here, the fletching design, is that significant that it not only does it stabilize it quicker, but it carries speed better, and it probably has a lot to do with the straightness of the arrow. I love Easton arrows. I've been shooting Easton arrows for a long time. I love their match grade. I've had very good success in the field with them, and everything they've done has been amazing. I've been very impressed with these arrows, and that was a huge data point for me. That's something I didn't expect. Like I said, they're tighter groups. On average, I'm seeing tighter groups everywhere I go with these particular arrows. And another thing of note is that they're more forgiving, which is very interesting because this is a kind of a faster bow. It's a smaller axle to axle, shorter brace height, so you have to be a little more particular about your shot process. It's not as forgiving as a taller bow with a longer brace height. And these arrows are more forgiving than any other arrow that I've shot. And if you're new to that term forgiveness, that means that if you twitch or you make an imperfect shot, how bad are your misses going to be compared to a bow or a setup that's more forgiving? So like these arrows, I feel like every time I shoot it, if I make an imperfect shot, my miss is hardly any. And so you might have seen on social media the past couple days, we posted up some cold shots. I've been going out there prior to my antelope hunt, which starts in a week, and I've been doing cold shots at distance. And 3 days ago, I did a 106-yard cold shot with this, pretty much smack dab in the center. Then yesterday morning, I went out and did one at 117, almost smack dab in the center. One shot, and that's it. That's all I'm doing for the day. These things are like pretty accurate, and so the way I'm looking at it is, yes, I've nitpicked some of the like their support, the parts, and all these little things. But if you look at it solely through a performance standpoint, I truly feel like the arrow is worth it, because if you're gonna hunt or you're gonna compete and you're looking for the best of the best, this arrow is gonna be the first thing that touches an animal. This is gonna be the first thing that touches the target, and you want the best of the best, because if you're hunting, that's what you owe the animal. If it's within their capability, or if you're competing, you want to win. So I've definitely felt more confident and more comfortable shooting these arrows. And the final point that I want to make is that I love shooting fixed blade broadheads. I love shooting fixed blade broadheads at distance. And usually what I'll do is I'll tune them to my bow, do a little rest tuning, and then I'll go out and shoot 80 yards and look at how the broadhead performs at 80 yards to see how it's going to fly if I'm having to do a follow-up shot. And the reality is, you know, here in Arizona, we have a little bit longer shots. I'm not ever looking for an 80-yard shot, but if I can hit 80 yards with a broadhead, a 40-yard shot is a chip shot. So I put an Annihilator broadhead on these with no tuning. I didn't worry about where the blades and the Annihilators were sitting in relation to the vanes. And this thing was within 2 to 3 inches of center every single shot at 80 yards. So if it's going to steer a fixed blade broadhead at 100 grain XL Annihilator broadhead, it's going to steer a field point and a mechanical very, very well. So I've been super impressed with these arrows. Yes, they're expensive, and I don't know if you guys have seen some of the other folks talking about, but if you go and you're going to purchase some custom air components online, say you want to get some Ethics components, which are amazing, Iron Will components, which are amazing, and you get some Victory, Repeatability, Elite V1 shafts, all your Nock custom DCA fletchings, you're going to be about $200-ish for 6 arrows. So $220 is expensive, but it's not, you know, out of the realm of possibilities when it's an entire new system, a new arrow, a new vane, a new insert, all that stuff together. So it is expensive, but if you look at Ultraview, everything that they make is very high quality, it's very well thought out, and it's something that everybody uses, and they're really, really well done. So I'm going to say personally, I'm going to be using these arrows on my antelope hunt that starts in a week. I have the confidence to do that, and I'm really happy with the way they fly. So I just want to say I appreciate you guys watching this video. Thanks everybody for coming into the shop and supporting us and being part of this community that we're building. We're really, really grateful that you guys choose us. And leave us some comments below. Let us know what you think. We do have some in stock. We can ship them. You can come test them out in the shop. Come talk to us in person about what you think, and we'll get it going from there. But in the meantime, good luck this hunting season, and come tell us some of your hunting stories. Thanks.